Hello everyone, I'm Mike Kruger from Weather NorCal. This is another edition of NorCal Ag, and we are out at Lassen Nursery, of course, the sponsor of NorCal Ag. And behind me, and of course, first, before we get into that, I've got to introduce our guest. And this is Hannah Zeng, and you are the lab, you don't really have an official title, but you
lab
would,
technician.
Lab technician. And behind us, we've got strawberries, right? So these are strawberries, but there is a whole process before any of these strawberries get planted in here and even go out to Manteca for their final process. But there's a whole process. They've got a lab here. So Hannah here is going to show us this lab and kind of take us through the process of how a strawberry is, in a sense, a strawberry plant is in a sense born. So let's get right to it.
This is where the plants get started. We just take a regular strawberry plant, put it in potting soil, and allow them to proliferate. They naturally reproduce asexually by putting out these little plantlets. And they're not looking the best right now. This is how they look at the very end of the season when it's cold and they've gone dormant, so a lot of dead leaves. But once we let them grow out, we move them into our heat chamber for a heat treatment process that gets rid of viruses. Our heat chamber is kept at 97 degrees.
Okay.
And the plants
like a typical
in here.
Summer in Reading. So
Yeah.
when it's summer in Reading, you probably don't have to heat this up a whole lot, right?
Yes, in the summer we actually have a cooling system in place.
Cooling to start, yes. So then it's in here for 6 weeks.
Yes.
Kind of the same concept here. You've got the whatever these are called again. What are they called?
Yep, these are called runners.
Runners.
And we just let them, hang out in here for 6 weeks. And so that is typically enough to kill off any viruses that may be present in the plant. Once those 6 weeks in the heat chamber are up, we take those plants and I start cutting them under a microscope. And the reason for that is because we are extracting a very, very small, about 1 millimeter in length piece of tissue, which is the central growing point of each plant. I extract that and place it into tissue culture media into these little test tubes. The plants typically stay in these tubes for about 90 days. That's how long it takes for them to grow from that 1 millimeter piece of tissue into about 2 or 3 inch sized little plant. So once those 90 days in the test tube are up, we take them out of the test tube and plant them inside these little pots in regular potting soil. Place a little hood over it to help keep the moisture in. They're very sensitive and delicate at this stage. And then a few weeks later, we take those hoods off and they start to look a little more like this.
So now we're out in the screen room, as you call it. And this is the semi-final process, at least for you, right?
Yes.
So they end up here, and what happens next?
Yep, each one of those little black pots goes in one of these bins and we allow them to naturally proliferate.
So this right here, this whole bin is from one plant?
Yes. Yeah, so this is all part of our multiplication process.
Wow, okay.
We put one plant in one bin and we hope to get at least 100 plants out of it.
So 100 plants in there, plus all these other hundreds of plants.
Yes.
So then from there, they go to Manteca, right?
Yes. Yes.
And that's the final process. That's the final step.
Well, not quite.
Okay.
Yeah, from here they go to what we call our low elevation fields in Manteca. And we call them that because of the lower elevation. And we take these 100 plants and we let those proliferate into, let's say the 100 might become 20,000. And then from there we take those 20,000 and move them to our high elevation in McDowell.
Okay, McDowell. All right. Yeah. Okay. So it goes and that's the final process.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We're getting the final process. So then you harvest them there, and then that's where they get distributed to people to plant them and grow the strawberries.
Yes.
Correct. All right. Who knew? I mean, what an amazing process to see from the conception, really, to coming out here and then hearing about Manteca and McDowell. I mean, quite a process that they have here at Lassen County Nursery. So thank you so much for giving us this little tour and education about strawberry plants. Really appreciate it. And we will see you for another edition of NorCal Ag.